before we started, I said to Travis, please don't spin too hard. Don't you want the athletes to win?
Oh, so it was Travis who was spinning you,
me,
and Jason was...
And I think Jason also has little kids, so he's like used to doing that. So yeah, I was definitely glad that Travis had listened to me.
Yeah.
Took it easy.
Welcome to the Let's Reign podcast, where you get to know current and former UC athletes, coaches, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Hoard. Our guest is Jillian Hayes. We have to start with the breaking news because recently the 60th anniversary of the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit issue hit the newsstands. You are in it. The shoot took place in February. Have you basically been sworn to secrecy since?
Yes, literally sworn to secrecy. The only people who knew were my family and then the coaching staff and my teammates. So it was such a hard secret to keep.
How were you chosen?
So they did like a BU empowerment series here for the Big 12. They did it at all the new schools, and Big 12 just partnered with Sports Illustrated Swimsuit, and I was one of the people nominated, and they ended up choosing me. So
super cool. I heard a little bit about the shoot itself and like this whirlwind. You play a game on Saturday, you fly to Belize in the Caribbean on Sunday, you're back playing a few days later. Can you explain that whole process?
Yes, it was definitely like it could have been a stressful situation, but it wasn't. Everyone, like administration and our support staff, made it possible. So I was so grateful for that. But I played a home game on Saturday, and then I flew out Sunday morning, landed, did fittings, tried on all my suits. Then the next morning got up at like 6, did hair and makeup, shot for the whole day, went to bed, and then got up and flew on Tuesday morning into Kansas. And thankfully, Trina took me to the gym that night. The whole team had already shot around. They already did practice. So she took me to the gym and put me through a workout to get my legs back under me, and then went to shoot around on Wednesday morning and played Wednesday night.
And had 15 points and 17 rebounds. So apparently being in the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit issue does not throw off your game.
They were saying I just have to go to Belize before every game.
So as we record this podcast, you'll be heading to Miami for the big celebration of this issue. And again, it's the 60th anniversary. It's one of the most famous magazine issues or magazines in the world. Has it sunk in that you're part of this huge deal?
I really don't think so. It feels so surreal and like something I can't even comprehend. So I don't think it will set in until I physically get into Florida and like have the issue in my hand.
Once there's a physical copy.
Yes.
All right, let's talk hoops a little bit. I got to know your dad when he was an assistant coach, tight ends coach for the Cincinnati Bengals for many years. So I know a little bit about just how incredibly athletic your family is. Your mom was an All-American basketball player. Your brother Jackson's in the NBA. You've got 2 younger brothers that are going to be playing college football. Was it always understood that you were going to be an athlete?
Yes, 100%. I was just talking with someone the other day and said, like, when I got all my offers when I was like a freshman and throughout high school, everyone made such a big deal out of it. And I was like, what do you mean? And I'm supposed to get these offers? Duh, I'm going to go play Division I basketball. So yeah, definitely just like a norm in our family.
Did your mom really average 52 a game in high school?
Yes.
How is that possible?
To be fair, she did play 3-on-3 in Iowa.
So 6-person basketball.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So she strictly played offense, and I always remind her that when she reminds me she averaged 52. But yes, she did in fact average 52 points.
But went on to have a tremendous college career. Was she your primary coach growing up?
Mm-hmm. She was my first ever basketball coach when I started playing organized basketball in the 3rd and 4th grade. And I cherish those moments looking back on them, but at the time, I probably wore her out.
Not the other way around?
Probably vice versa.
Okay. So you went to Loveland High School, all-time leading scorer, all-time leading rebounder. When did you realize just how good you were and that you had a future as a Division I college basketball player?
I think, like I said, kind of just growing up, I always thought I was going to play Division I basketball. I think that was just my like standard, my norm. Even my older cousins all played Division I football and Division I basketball. But I think when I hit about my sophomore year in high school, I was like, oh wait, like I'm actually good though. Like I don't just have to do this. Like I'm actually good at it, and I love playing it. So.
Did the letters start coming in? Did that help you realize just how likely you were to have a future in this sport?
I'd gotten, I think, my first offer my freshman year, so I kind of already knew, but I was just kind of, like I said, just a normal thing. But I think once I really fell in love with it and started doing it for myself, and I think that's when everything changed.
I assume you could have gone just about anywhere. Why did you elect to stay home?
I just love the atmosphere and the community that Cincinnati has. I think it's different from a lot of schools, and you can't get that everywhere. I also think playing for my hometown means something different, and I take a lot of pride in that. Every time I put on that Cincinnati uniform, it means so much to me, and I wear it with such pride, and just wanting to make everyone in the city and the community proud.
You've already had a great career at UC. You've scored more than 1,000 points. You're honorable mention all Big 12 this past year, but because of the COVID rules, you can play another season, and you've announced that you're going to play another season. Was that a difficult decision or a no-brainer?
For me, it was really a no-brainer. I love this school, like I said. I love this university administration. I love my coaches. I love my teammates. They make it fun. My mom said she just loves seeing me have a smile on my face when I play, and I've smiled a lot this past year. So, yeah, I think I just wouldn't have wanted to finish my career out anywhere else.
As soon as you learned that the COVID exemption was coming into existence, did you start to think then, hey, I could be here for 5 years?
So even with the previous coaching staff, Coach Hoard had already told me, she was like, yeah, you're going to take that 5th year here. So even when Trina came, I didn't know, because obviously it's a new coaching staff and everyone runs their program differently. So when the new coaching staff came in, although up to that point I thought I was going to take it here, I didn't know, but they were quick to be like, no, you're taking it too. So, yeah. It
may be optional, but no, you have to stay for a 5th year. So Trina is obviously Katrina Merriweather, former UC player, became the head coach last year. What did you enjoy about playing for her last season?
Everything, honestly. She brings such a level of intensity and passion. I've said it numerous times, and I'll continue to say it. I think it's different when you play for a coach that put on the same uniform as you. She just takes such pride in all she does, but she also loves on us so much. Off the court and on the court, she cares about us. She knows it's bigger than basketball, and I don't think you find that very often in a coach.
What was year one in the Big 12 like?
It was different. It was a lot different. I loved playing on the bigger stages, playing against the best of the best. The competition's a lot bigger physically. Going into some of those arenas, it was crazy packed, and that's what you want to play in front of. So it was really cool. It was a great experience. So
this has been a big year in women's basketball. Women's college basketball in particular. Caitlin Clark helped generate these incredible TV ratings and sold-out crowds, and now she's doing it for Indiana in the WNBA. How significant is that to you?
It's huge. I think her, Angel Reese, I think there's a lot of players that have been able to make such a big impact and draw big crowds and a lot of eyes. And I think that's been important. I think finally women's basketball is getting the recognition it deserves. And, I thank the players and the women who came before us that built the foundation and have allowed us to play already in these instances, and then for them to just keep pushing our movement and pushing forward so we can keep drawing bigger crowds and getting the recognition that we deserve.
So you had some fun recently when the Kelsey brothers were in town to record their podcast. You were chosen as one of the athletes to compete in the Lambaby Games. Mm-hmm. The nerds beat the athletes. That was their word, not mine. That was Jason Kelsey's word. But in any case, you were involved in some sort of competition where you were spun around, round and around and around, and Jason Kelsey took it a little bit easier on you than Travis Kelsey did with the person he was spinning. Did you know? Did he tip you off? So, I'm not going to make you vomit or anything?
To be fair, I sat straight up. So I wasn't going to get as spinning. My counterpart, his name is Zach.
Yeah,
Zach. He laid down. His head was just spinning outside so that was kind of on him. But no, before we started, I said to Travis, I was like, please don't spin me too hard. Don't you want the athletes to win? And so. Oh,
so it was Travis who was spinning you, and Jason was.
And I think Jason also has little kids, so he's like used to doing that. So yeah, I was definitely glad that Travis had listened to me and took it easy.
Savvy move on your part, though, to stay vertical.
Yeah,
like a figure skater.
Mm-hmm. Smart. I got up and I started running, and I was like, oh, wait, you're going to fall over, you're dizzy. I'm like, wait, I'm not even dizzy. So.
How much fun was being involved in that event?
Oh, my gosh, that was so incredible. It was so much fun. The athletes and the nerds, we all had fun together. It was a great experience. And, having the turnout that they even had was incredible, selling out Fifth Third Arena. So, it was so much fun.
Did you interact much with Jason and Travis?
Throughout the games, I think they're just naturally very funny people, funny guys, and they were obviously always cracking jokes. But yeah, it was so cool. So
you're involved in that. You got the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit issue. I've seen an ad for Fifth Third Bank, a TV ad or internet ad. I'm not sure if it's actually been on TV or not yet, but describe what it's been like to be an athlete in this day and age with NIL and having opportunities like that.
I think NIL has been big for so many people, all student athletes. Not even just within, maybe making some extra money or getting free products. I think it's big for networking and just getting real world experience for after college, because obviously this doesn't last forever. So I think it's been great seeing, especially, there's different levels to it. A lot of people, pour a lot more time into it than others. I always say I should probably focus on pouring a little bit more time into it. But it really is like a second job. So you're doing school, you're doing your sport, and then doing social media on top of that and trying to get NIL. It can be a lot, but overall I think it's just a really great opportunity for us student athletes.
I mentioned your brother Jackson earlier. He's 23. He's got 5 years of NBA experience under his belt. Played with LeBron this last year. Has played with Zion in New Orleans in the past. How much enjoyment have you received following his career, interacting maybe with some of his teammates, things like that?
It's been unbelievable. I'm beyond proud of him and his growth. Going into the league at 18, 19, it's like you're still a kid. So to not only see him on the court but off the court be able to just mature and grow into the young man he is inspires me daily. And obviously it's cool, after season this past year I was able to take a few days and go out to LA and catch 2 games, which was awesome, and just see him interact and having fun and playing on the biggest stage is really awesome.
Did you get to visit with LeBron?
I didn't get to speak to LeBron, but I did see him on the court.
All right, that's still to come, hopefully. I've read that you have an interest in eventually getting into sports broadcasting. Is that the case?
So I host a podcast with one of my friends. She plays soccer at Oregon State. She just graduated, but it's called Half an Athlete, and it's just something I enjoy. It's something, when people ask what I want to do with my future, I'm always like, I don't know. But, I think sports broadcasting or sideline reporting would be something that I'm definitely interested in doing, possibly.
All right, so people that have just watched the Let's Rain podcast, Half an Athlete, is that the name of yours?
Yes.
Half an Athlete, as if to say that's half of you. You're an athlete, but you're more than that. All right, I'll have to listen.
Okay, sounds good.
This was fun. Congratulations on being part of the 60th anniversary episode of the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit magazine, and congratulations on a great career so far at UC.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
People probably don't always believe it. It's really not a lot of fancy things or, geez, these guys woke up one morning and said, hey, we should do this to help ourselves. He comes into the defensive staff room, draws up 3 defensive linemen, and says, this is the number of D linemen you're allowed to play at one time, figure the rest of it out. And that was it. Walked out of the room.
Welcome to the Let's Rain podcast, candid conversations with current and former UC players, coaches, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Hoard. Our guest for this episode is Cincinnati's new defensive coordinator this year, Tyson Veidt. You're from Logan, Ohio, a small town not too far from Columbus, I guess. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Logan.
So, correct, small town, hour south of Columbus. Many people probably know it these days as a tourist attraction with the Hocking Hills. That's where I grew up, really. So, grew up in a great town, small town. As it goes, we had one high school in the county. We had our own newspaper, so it was a great place to grow up, right? Has changed a lot since. A lot of industry is not there anymore. But thankfully, it's as we like to say, it's in God's country, or is God's country, and a lot of tourists go there now, and that's really the main form of industry at this point. My parents still live there. My parents are from Lancaster, Ohio, not from Logan, Ohio, but have lived in Logan for several years, and are still there.
So one of the greatest women's basketball players of all time is from Logan, Ohio. She went to your high school, Katie Smith.
She did.
You were there at the same time, right?
We were. We graduated in the same class in
Wow.
1992. Yeah. We had 2 consecutive runs at a state title and did not win it, actually. So, but Katie is arguably one of the greatest women's basketball players ever. More than 1 gold medal, and played several years in the WNBA, and she's coaching now. So she was the head coach of the New York team, the Liberty, and is now in Minnesota as an assistant. So
I think I read somewhere that she has scored more points professionally than any other women's player of all time.
I think that's exactly right. Yes, and she would play in Europe, in what would be the off season. Then impressive.
Cool claim to fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucille Ball's from my hometown, so
there we go.
It's
All
always
right.
good to have these claims to fame.
Yeah.
You played college football at Muskingum, alma mater of astronaut John Glenn. Yep, another famous tie there. Did you start thinking about coaching when you were playing there?
Actually, no. So I had gone to hopefully get into physical therapy school. At that time, if you didn't go to a couple of the schools in the state that had a physical therapy program, you would go for 2 or 3 years to get technically your physical therapy degree. So that's what I originally had done. And the year after I had graduated, I helped out, took post-grad classes, and reapplied to graduate schools again, got a couple interviews, did not work out. At that point in time, really needed a plan B and didn't have one exactly. Long story short, I was, at that time, we had what was Logan Clay Products, clay pipe manufacturing company in our town. I was working there.
Doing what?
Well, I was on press number 3. And in press number 3, we made a few different styles of clay pipe, but I was usually one of the guys pulling off the press, stacking it on the carts that would then go into the kiln to fire this wet clay. And we worked 6 days a week. And at that point in time, I had plans to, I'm going to become certified to teach. My mom is a retired teacher. My oldest brother is a teacher, and figure it out from there, right? My college head coach had called, hey, we've got a graduate assistant position open. Would you want to do that? And I said, absolutely. So that's how I really got into it. Yeah, I got off of press number 3 and started coaching at my alma mater.
So my dad was an upholsterer. I worked for him one summer. It was miserable work. It helped me realize, do something that you love and you'll feel like you never worked.
Absolutely.
Was it similar for you?
Very, very similar. And I was in a spot where, an odd spot I felt like at the time, college degree and no plan. And knew that with being the last of my family to go to college, knew that I needed a plan and was trying to formulate that at the time. And certainly a lot of encouragement from my parents that I wasn't going to stay at home. I knew that, and I needed to figure it out. Yeah, the rest, would be, I guess, history, as you say. I've certainly been in coaching since, and I'm certainly glad that, my college head coach got me into the profession. Absolutely.
So the entry level is typically being a GA. You do everything. You don't make any money. You did that for a few years.
Right.
Then you became the defensive coordinator at your alma mater. How old were you?
I did. So that's a good question, too. So I was there 2 years. And like you said, Dan, great experience. I helped with intramurals, filled out the timesheets for work study. We coached our own position, recruited our area, you know, all the things that you're learning to do. And, you know, to me, I was at the place that I loved, I played at and graduated from, and thought it was the best thing ever, you know, because, you know, you don't need any money then. You don't even need furniture, you know, when you're young and all that, single. And so there was a graduate assistant position then that opened up at Indiana University. So the only reason I got it, I interviewed with Pete Schmidt, the offensive coordinator at that time at Indiana, and I drove all the way out, meet him, talk to him for 20 minutes. He said, "I've got one question really for you. Are you single?" Which I guess you probably can't ask that anymore. I said, "I am." He said, "You got the job."
They didn't want a married guy who had
right.
other commitments.
Yeah. So went and did that for a year, and then went back to Muskingum. So would have gone back in 2000 to Muskingum.
And you're not even 25 years old at this point?
At that point, I would have been 26 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, going back to Muskingum at 26. Yeah. So I was there, I guess you would say, 2 times at Muskingum, or I guess 3 if you put in the press 3 work at the clay factory, right? Yeah.
So your first head coaching job was at Bluffton University, not far from Lima. The team was 1-9 the year before you got there.
Yeah.
You didn't have a ton on the roster. Did you have any idea what you're getting into?
No, I didn't actually. I did not. So, in that, and my college head coach is still a huge impact and influence in my life. I had interviewed for it, and they called and offered me the job. So I didn't give them an answer. I was married at that time as well. So the first call I made, though, was to my college head coach, Jeff Haycock, and I'm like, "Hey, I just got offered this job. It's the same that I'm making now at St. Vincent as a defensive coordinator. What do I do?" He goes, "Well, they probably offered you as much money as they have, so it's not as if you're gonna up that." He said, "Do you want to be a head coach?" He goes, "That's what you're deciding at this point." I said, "Well, I do." He said, "Well, there's your answer." So called and obviously talked to Mandy at that point, and we decided we're moving from Latrobe, Pennsylvania to Bluffton, Ohio. So, which was easy because there was just 2 of us at that point, you know. So no, I didn't know what I was getting into in a number of ways. So we finished our first spring there. We couldn't do 7-on-7 against one another. We had 18 guys at the end of our, you know, spring of 2008. So we couldn't field a team technically. And brought in 85 freshmen and played a lot of those guys, had a lot of growing pains, but accomplished a lot of very rewarding time. Very rewarding time for sure. Yeah,
the first couple of years were really rough, but by the end, you had turned that program into a winning program, which had to be very satisfying.
It was, yeah. We feel like we accomplished a lot there. Had still probably a group of guys that I stay in touch with the most are the groups that went through my time at Bluffton. Yeah.
So when you're the head coach at that level, you don't have a huge staff, you're probably doing all sorts of things that you never imagined would be part of a head coach's job.
Right, that's true. That's true. And I had a great support guy in town that really helped with a number of things like the tractor and the equipment to oversee the practice field and all those things, and showed me how to operate those things.
So you're riding the tractor sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Had 2 Bluffton alumni that were former high school head coaches that were educators in that area, Lou Stokes and Denny Phillips. Those 2 were priceless. I mean, tremendous men, and I still talk to both of those guys, but had great experiences and, you know, ingrained in the area. And, you know, we're paying those guys $2,000, you know, $2,000 to work their job, and then 8 more with us, you know. So, but
they didn't do it for the money.
They did not. Absolutely.
So after 6 years at Bluffton, you become the linebackers coach at Toledo under Matt Campbell. You followed him to Iowa State and had great success at both locations. How instrumental was he in your career?
Extremely, for sure. You know, we were, finished year 6 at Bluffton, and really at that point in time, even made the statement to Mandy, hey, we're probably going to be here for a while. And then, as a lot of people would say, timing is at times everything. So I go to Toledo a week before spring practice starts, and Mandy's pregnant with twins due any day. So a lot going on at that point. For sure thought there was no way I'm going to get the job. As I'm interviewing, Coach Campbell and I are talking, Mandy's pregnant with twins. I'm like, boy, there's no way he's going to hire a guy a week before spring ball with.
So you thought that fact would make it difficult to get the job, that you had twins on the way?
For sure, for sure, which obviously speaks volumes of Matt Campbell, right? That certainly didn't faze him, and he's a great human being and has given me a ton of opportunity, obviously, along the way, absolutely.
So at Iowa State, you helped develop a defense that the Cyclones became known for, the 3-3-5 with 3 safeties. How did that come about?
I've told this story a couple of times. People probably don't always believe it. It's really not a lot of initially fancy things or, geez, these guys woke up one morning and said, hey, we should do this to help ourselves. We were in our second year at Iowa State. We came over and played at Akron and didn't play great, probably really on either side of the ball. Won the game, but as it goes, didn't feel great about it, knowing the road ahead with the opponents we had and how we performed at that point and all those things. So that Sunday, we're preparing to meet with Coach Campbell, and he comes into the defensive staff room. Doesn't say a ton, writes, our depth chart on the board, and then draws up 3 defensive linemen and says, this is a number of D linemen you're allowed to play at one time, figure the rest of it out. And that was it. Walked out of the room, and we're okay. In 10 days, we were playing Texas. So
now, did you have 3 solid defensive linemen, and that's why he felt, all right, let's play those guys and figure the rest out?
We did, yeah. And Coach Campbell was big on evaluation of offensive and defensive line. That's really probably his forte. He's an offensive line coach, really, by trade. But we felt, and in his mind, our 4th best guy would now be our top sub and not a starter. And he felt like we had probably a little bit more depth with our second level guys to give us a chance to hold up through the year. And he was absolutely correct with all that. And we had a converted quarterback at Mike linebacker at the time, Joel Lanning, who was a great player and played really both ways as a senior. He played over 100 snaps on offense at quarterback and played nearly every snap on defense for us. So we had some unique parts. We're still really trying to figure out what they could do best, I think, even at that point. But yeah, that's really how it got started. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Joel Lanning.
Yeah.
Because he was the starting quarterback as a sophomore and as a junior.
That's right.
And then you make him a middle linebacker as a senior. You've got a quarterback at Cincinnati in Brady Drogosh who's making this adjustment from quarterback to linebacker. Does the Lanning example help in this case?
I feel like it does. I actually told his parents that after the spring game at our meal in the Fifth Third. But yeah, I feel like it does. The interesting thing, some of the same things that Brady has said to me are what Joel had said. Just the sheer fact of running to the ball on every play is a brand new thing for a quarterback. The conditioning level of things, I feel like, is different. Play after play, how you have to practice, obviously what it takes to make it through a practice as a non-quarterback with the physical banging of things, not wearing a red or a green or a blue jersey, whatever it might be, right? So there's some things there that are probably the biggest adjustments for guys like that. And like Joel, Brady really has never played, he hasn't played any other position, been a quarterback.
Right.
So, yeah, but you feel like they have some ability to, you hope, anticipate things based on what they're seeing and maybe what offenses are doing.
So Joel not only did it, but I believe he was a first-team All-American as a linebacker.
He was, yeah.
Which is incredible. And I imagine that helps in your mind think, okay, this can be done.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to the 3-3-5. Some teams have adopted it. Cincinnati is going to play it now that you're the defensive coordinator. But it seems to me that maybe it's been slow for other teams to adopt it. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I do, and probably we were probably a little bit like that in the beginning phases of it, because I feel like based on what you have done, you're still trying to implement those concepts into what you had spent the most time on. And we were a little bit like that as well in the early parts of it, still trying to play what we had done, relating some of those concepts into what we were doing that were new. So I feel like that's probably, like anything, the more experience that you gain in something, hopefully the better you are at that. And probably the more comfortable you are in teaching it, the concepts of it. So that's, and I feel like that's probably hesitation on everybody's end.
So for 4 of your years at Iowa State, the starting quarterback was Brock Purdy, who's obviously been an incredible story in the NFL with the 49ers. Do you have a favorite Brock Purdy story or anecdote?
Probably not necessarily a specific story, but just I think the memorable thing with him is how he carried himself on a daily basis. No one, I'm sure, could probably say, hey, he's going to have this success in the NFL that he had. Who predicts that stuff, right? But you could tell that this guy operated like a professional every day, in the locker room, in the meeting room, extra time in the building, all the things that it takes to have a chance to have the success. So that's really the most memorable part with Brock to me.
So you got hired here at Cincinnati as the defensive coordinator in January, and you didn't have a long history with Scott Satterfield where you had coached for him at different locations prior to this. How did that connection come about for this job?
Well, actually, Matt Campbell and Coach Satterfield had worked together for a brief time at Toledo. And Tom Manning, who is at the Indianapolis Colts, had been here briefly with Coach Satterfield. So that was really the two connectors for me. But I had met Coach Satterfield at one point in time. He actually came out to spring practice at one time at Iowa State when he was at Appalachian State, but just briefly, on the sideline of one of our practices. That was all. So, had no relationship, you would say, with Coach.
So you've been working with him now for about 5 months. When you talk to recruits and their families about Coach Satterfield, what do you tell them?
Super realistic and down-to-earth guy. And I think that's one thing that you probably everybody feels about Coach Satterfield. Got a big heart and easy to talk to. And I feel like a guy that sees the whole picture and the big picture really easily. And that's been a lot of fun to me, for sure.
What have these 5 months been like for you? You've got 3 kids. They're in school. How have you dealt with the transition?
It's certainly had its ups and downs just on the family end of it, naturally. It's great, obviously, to have everybody here at this point. Our children are in school and developing a routine, which you certainly hope for. We had spent 9 Easters in the same house in Ames, Iowa, right? So, our girls were 1 when we moved there, and they move out at 10. So that's a significant amount of time, in one spot, Dan. So that it was, as it goes, no move is easy, and no transition in a football program is easy either. So, but I feel like on both ends of that, progress has been made. We've got a long way to go yet on the family end with progress, and on the football end with progress, but I feel like we're making some.
Well, that many years in one place in your line of work is actually pretty unusual.
It is, yeah. Several people have said that that I've met along the way since I've been here in Cincinnati. So, and being there was a great experience, and accomplished a lot of things with a great group of people, and that's what you always remember the most are the people that you're spending all the time with.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this year's team. You inherited defense with some talented players, most notably the Godfather, Dante Corleone. How would you describe him as a person?
Big heart, caring guy. Really tries to be uplifting to everybody on the team, to me, not just the defensive line, not just the defensive players. So I feel like he is a guy that others gravitate toward because he is a kind human. And I think, you know, the sky's the limit still for him. He's got a lot of developing that he can do for us, and we're excited about that.
You've coached linebackers for much of your career. Jack Dingle moved into the starting lineup last year, an incredible athlete, son of a former NFL player. What's next in Jack's development? Well,
he is certainly an extremely hard worker. So that certainly aids in everything that he's developing in. He takes things very seriously, from his routine to his nutrition to everything we do in the weight room and out on the football field. Coaches and helps others, irrespective of what spot they are on the depth chart and what position they are. So I think the leadership quality of things, and we're trying to bring that out in really all of our guys, to be honest. But he certainly is a guy that, by his play and the amount of snaps that he has played here at Cincinnati, has the ability to be a great leader for us. And I think that's really what we're working on right now, to be honest. And hopefully we can continue to make progress in that.
One of the transfers that joined the team is Jared Bartlett, who came from West Virginia, primarily an edge rusher there, but he was playing middle linebacker in spring football. Is that a natural transition for him?
It probably is not. He's worked extremely hard to have success there, and we have done a little bit of both with him through the spring, which has been good because he's had experience on the line of scrimmage, which makes him a really valuable guy for us. I feel like he is still learning every day. Made unbelievable progress from practice 1 to practice 15. And I still think he has a ton of developing to do, and it has a great skill set to continue to improve and to help us.
I thought during the course of spring practice, the defense made a ton of progress, which I guess is natural. They're learning a new system. You've got a lot of new bodies and personalities in there. But by the end of spring ball, it seemed like things were clicking. Was that how the coaching staff felt?
I appreciate you saying that. I need you to ride home with me at night, I feel like, and sit in the passenger seat. Yeah, so you could help me out probably many nights on the way home. We did actually, though, honestly. Yeah, we felt like we made progress. We tried to keep things really simple so we could teach fundamentals as guys were learning a new defense. And I think the unique part of it, several of the guys had just learned a new defense from the prior season, right? So some of these guys are on, technically could be defense 3 in 3 seasons, 3 springs, technically, you would say, right? Which is unique. You've got, like, Eric Phillips is going to be on year 6 here, and he in his last 3 years would be 3 different defenses, right? So you've got some guys in those spots that have been here and have been through some change. So with that, the fundamental aspect of things was still really important to us: block destruction, tackling, running to the football. So those things we probably worked on more than anything schematically. But I do feel like within the base concept of our defense, we did make progress.
So in the current landscape of college football coaching, with NIL and the transfer portal and everything else, there's not a lot of downtime. When you have some, if you have some, what do you enjoy doing?
Really spending time with my family, honestly. Being involved with what they're involved in, and our girls are playing soccer right now. Our son is in baseball right now, and really trying to be around for them as much as I can, and have been fortunate. I've seen my parents several times since I've been here, at the end of January to now. And I do like to fish. So when I get those opportunities, I do like to do that. Our children also like to, so it's fun for us to do it, and it probably gives Mandy some time away from 4 other people, so that probably helps
That's
as well.
okay too.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, the pride of Logan, Ohio, along with Katie Smith. It's great to have you here in Cincinnati. Appreciate your time and look forward to the football season. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it greatly.